Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and today guys I'm here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle I'm going to be playing Bretonnia and I am facing off against the Empire. So my opponent for this game is actually the mighty Gobbo King, so for any of you guys that haven't seen his channel, there will be a link in both the description box as well as the comment section below. So let's begin by taking a look at the army compositions. So in my front line I have a combination of men-at-arms, battle pilgrims, and foot squires. So let's go ahead and pause as we are quite close together. So battle pilgrims are kind of the intuitive pick against the Empire because firstly, if you look at their weapon stats here, they have 35 weapon strength and 41 melee attack when their frenzy is active. Granted, those aren't the base stats. These ones do have one chevron, but again, that is the case for I think all of my battle pilgrims in the front line. So, but these guys do very well against lightly armored infantry, spearmen, halberds, flagellants, units like that, because again, they hit very, very hard. Where they would struggle against Empire infantry is probably against greatswords, but greatswords aren't a terribly popular pick against Bretonnia because typically the Bretonnian front line doesn't have a ton of armor. So battle pilgrims here in the front, and they are going to be supported by a few foot squires. I believe I have two groups. So foot squires are a pretty decent pick to kind of mix in with the battle pilgrims because number one, if they do happen to bring great swords and kind of mind game you a little bit, they'll be a pretty good answer to that. And on top of that, if you know some Demogryph Knights or Knights of the Blazing Sun or Reichsguard or anything like that gets into your back line, it's nice to have a little bit of extra armor piercing that you can pull back to help out in that respect. So I do have a Grail Reliquae, the Fey Enchantress with the Chalice of Potions, as well as her standard healing abilities. And in the wings, I actually do have two groups of men-at-arms. So I had some extra gold, so I threw some chevrons on these guys. But for how much you're paying, these guys are not bad. They can stand and trade with spearmen. They can stand and trade with halberds. And it's nice when you're playing Bretonnia against Empire, in my experience, to have a very wide front line, because then you can kind of like concave them and collapse on their back, and it puts a lot of pressure on them. But in the case of the Gobbo King, he actually brought a fairly interesting build that I was not expecting. So he has Knights of the Blazing Sun, Demogryph Knights, and then a second pair of those. So Knights of the Blazing Sun and more Demogryph Knights. So a very cav-heavy build, which is going to be tough because they can definitely run down the battle pilgrims and, you know, the men-at-arms. But in the side, I do have two spearmen over here. Spearmen at arms, very cheap, like 250 gold if I'm not mistaken. Some peasant bowmen with the pox arrows. So again, against the lightly armored Empire, these guys are good at focusing down spears, flagellants, and if you know the Empire does have their casters, like a light wizard for example, they only have 20 armor, so these guys can actually do some good work on them. For my cav, I do have some Royal Pegasus Knights. I believe they're the royal ones, yes. And then the Knights of the Realm. So Knights of the Realm trade well with most Empire cav. Granted, they will lose straight up, obviously, the Demogryph Knights and things like that, but with their anti-large bonus and really good charge bonus for their cost, these guys are quite good. So that's pretty much it for my army. I do have the Fey Enchantress and, of course, a Paladin, actually, that's going to be flying around with my Royal Pegasus Knights. For the mighty Gobbo King, he has Knights of the Blazing Sun, Demogryph Knights with halberds. He's got some flagellants, a Jade Wizard for healing, Light Wizard for nets, which I actually like quite a bit. Granted, he doesn't have any like guns or anything like that, so I think what he's going to try and do is like net me and get an ideal charge, or maybe like lock down my Pegasus Knights and then allow him to just kind of run amok. For his leadership, I believe he does have Boris Todbringer on a mount somewhere or other, but for his infantry, he has great swords, flagellants, and some spears in the back, but a very cav-heavy build for my opponent. Definitely going to be fun to see. So guys, without further ado, let the games begin. So we're going to get right into the action with an epic Rohirrim style charge, just downhill. You see these men-at-arms are just going to get absolutely run over. So I wasn't expecting like someone to get cav and just like charge into my front line with the Empire against Bretonnia. I do have some men-at-arms and Knights of the Realm in the back who are going to come support, but this is going to be massive casualties. You can see the shock damage is huge. So I pulled my battle pilgrims, and I also do get a nice little counter charge. So my Knights of the Realm charge in here. They're going to be lancing a lot of these guys. And Knights of the Realm do beat Knights of the Blazing Sun, if I'm not mistaken, straight up in one-on-one, because I think that anti-large bonus does take into account, and I think the charge bonus is actually somewhat similar just overall. But yeah, it's actually more for Knights of the Blazing Sun. So maybe the Knights would win. I'm not sure, but regardless, I do have the Spearmen at arms in here, and you can see he's taking pretty massive casualties. On the hill, we did get some Demogryph Knights that are fighting against some of my battle pilgrims, so the battle pilgrims will not do well here against that heavy armor. And I did have some Demogryph Knights, or excuse me, Royal Pegasus Knights that I was coming over to reinforce with. I figured I could like really collapse, but the Gobbo King got a very good net of Amnatoc that locked me down. I did get a nice heal in the front line that did catch these guys, thankfully, because they did take a little bit of damage over here from that initial fight, but I wanted to come over and just really sandwich these Demogryph Knights with halberds. But over here, the Gobbo King has a very overwhelming force and was able to do some great shock damage in the front line, but this is where I really wanted to turn the tide of the battle. So my Pegasus Knights are going to come down here, and they get an excellent rear charge on these Demogryph Knights here, and with their anti-large bonus and the assistance of this Paladin, that's such a cool scenic shot, just the Paladin like leading all these Royal Pegasus Knights into battle. But they get a great charge, and you can see the HP of these Demogryph Knights is tanking rapidly. They were at about 2,800, and now they're almost at 2,000. Their leadership is at 12, 0, and they're about to break, actually, which is pretty incredible. So I do have some spears over here and some other troops that are kind of supporting, and we were able to do well over here for the most part, but the Knights of the Blazing Sun did slip away, but this battle was a pretty decisive outcome for me over here. But Boris Todbringer is over there kind of helping them hold, but he's definitely going to have to retreat in a moment. On the other side, my infantry were able to do okay, but his Knights of the Blazing Sun and other troops keep reforming ranks and getting some good charges, and in the middle, my opponent has a lot of nasty stuff going on, and he's about to get a great charge here in the back of my troops. I was very heavily focused on the other side of the battlefield, but the Gobbo King was definitely just kind of running shop over here. So these Knights of the Blazing Sun going to get in here, and it almost looks like they're in a wedge formation when they charge in like that, but they are charging Spearmen at Arms, and I did use the Favor of the Fae. Unfortunately, my guys are just going to break, which is tough, but the Favor of the Fae definitely would have helped them in that situation. So I'm getting some Peasant Bowman fire, shooting in on these guys, applying some poison, but most of my infantry here are broken. In the middle, he has a very strong pocket. So I had some Battle Pilgrims and Foot Squires, but he had a Jade Wizard, a Light Wizard, and a Warrior Priest over here, which were just doing some serious work. And even with the Grail Reliquary, I wasn't able to hold. My peasants did unfortunately break, but I do have a very heavy force coming down from the hill, so you can see I do have Heroic Pegasus Knights, I have a Paladin, I have Knights of the Realm, all kinds of stuff, and my men-at-arms over here with polearms are also winning that infantry battle. So a very pitched fight. You can see Boris Todbringer in here with his Midland Rune Fang staying pretty steady, and despite taking some damage, he is going to be healing up pretty efficiently. That's definitely what makes Boris one of the more competitive picks. And he does also have some great swords and Knights of the Blazing Sun coming over, but I do drop a Chalice of Potions right here with the Fae Enchantress, who is kind of lurking in the back over here, if I'm not mistaken. So this is going to be devastating. So these greatswords have 73 models, 3,400 HP, and guys, just watch this this bomb come down right here. They run right into it and just take a devastating blow, sending them down to 48 models, almost ravaging that entire group of greatswords. That was a huge buff for me. And if you guys look, balance of power is very even. His army is quite a bit smaller because, again, it is a very cav-centric army, whereas I'm more infantry-based, and he also has a lot more heroic units, which are going to cut into your, like, raw, you know, just density of your army, I suppose. So over here, I'm getting some decent Peasant Bowman fire on some of these Flagellants. The poison is obviously going to be good. In the back line, the Gobbo King did slip some spears back, but these Battle Pilgrims over here are kind of chasing them down, getting some karate kicks in the back, and hopefully they can catch these guys in. Even these Battle Pilgrims right here, and there's 36 models, they're pretty tattered. They can probably win against 80 Spearmen because their offensive stats are just so much better. Granted, the Spearmen have good melee defense, but their weapon strength is quite low. And on top of that, their melee attack is pretty low. It's like 21 or so. But they do catch some of my Peasant Bowmen over here with the Pox arrows. So I'm going to be running them a little bit over into the forest and hoping that these Battle Pilgrims, as well as some of these spears, the Spearmen at Arms over here on the far side, can deal with them. So you can see I am getting the poison arrows over here and some of these greatswords who are taking a little bit of damage. Granted, they won't take the most because, again, they're pretty heavily armored. But still, this poison is going to be really nice because it does mitigate quite a few different combat stats. Over here, again, just a very pitched battle. This Warrior Priest in the middle, dropping that Grand Soulfire. And it's just a bunch of my peasants just kind of swarming on his knights and different units like that. So his Demogryph knights are starting to get pretty beat up. You can see there's about 9 models left. Their HP is incredibly low. And I do get my Paladin in here, which is going to be jumping this Warrior Priest. But there's just pitchforks and peasantry everywhere. Some of these greatswords are holding out here, but they were taking some arrows to the back. And though they do have 36 models, their HP is incredibly low. So these peasants, even, you know, with their really low stats, probably will be able to push these greatswords off. As rare as that is to hear, but it's probably going to happen. So over here, some of these Demogryph Knights did get jumped by the Fae Enchantress over here, and she has some really cool attack animations actually with her, like Dragon Ball Z Kamehameha or whatever that was called. She has like some animations where like she shoots like these force spikes at people and like picks them up in the air and slams them. But she's running over there. She's going to be charging down into the back, chasing off these Demogryph Knights. So they're down to 1 model here, and they're pretty much out of commission. Actually, their leadership is actually 10, so they're still in it, even with 5 HP. But they are kind of jumping on this Light Wizard right here. Going to definitely do our best to break him. Try and take him off the battlefield. He is shaken, but I believe I actually detach and go somewhere else, thinking that he was actually going to waver and break. And you can see Boris Todbringer is coming over here, and Boris is definitely in a very dangerous space right here. And he's not going to be able to catch the Fae Enchantress. I believe her Unicorn is, let's see what her movement speed is. So the Fae Enchantress has 95 speed against Boris's 66. So that Unicorn has got some serious wheels. Will definitely be able to outrun Boris, unfortunately. So I do have a fairly big peasant mob right here, which was able to secure the back line and fend off those spearmen. My peasant bowmen over here are healthy again, and you can also see we're just going very heavily after this Light Wizard right here, guys. And Boris Todbringer over here is definitely in a bit of a, definitely in the wrong neighborhood. We have a lot of foot squires and a lot of troops chasing him down, but the balance of power, again, guys, is still very even. This battle over here is very close. He has this Jade Wizard who's in pretty good shape. Also, my men-at-arms are holding, but the peasant bowmen actually over here are doing a little bit of friendly fire, but still going to be hitting the back of these flagellants. And another comet comes down, which actually does break those greatswords that were still there. I do have some mounted yeomen, 18 models, Knights of the Realm, and a lot of troop density left, but the Gobbo King is not out of this yet. He has a full health Warrior Priest. He also has a Jade Wizard right here, and you can see the Warrior Priest just marching up the hill with his hammer. Definitely one of the coolest units, thematically speaking. And he's good with that ward save, and if you get Benediction for the 8 leadership, he's like a mini Grail Reliquary for the Empire. So I've been seeing a lot of people on ladder using him quite a bit more lately. And you can see he gets in there doing some decent damage against these very lightly armored battle pilgrims. On the low ground, you can see Boris Todbringer is trying to finish off this Grail Reliquary, and he'll definitely be able to do so, and it looks like he does kill it, but he is still heavily surrounded by units with anti-large, very heavily tar-pitted, and he's probably not going to be able to get away here. His HP is still full, but he's going to start having to worry about army losses relatively shortly. Like if he loses some more of these heroic units or that Jade Wizard routes off here, you can see this Light Wizard routing is going to be a big issue for him. But the Pegasus Knights and the other troops are going to come in right here. This Warrior Priest is definitely going to fight, tooth and nail here, but he's going to get surrounded and, being attacked in the back. And when the Paladin comes in here and snipes this other wizard, because Paladins, that's kind of the reason I bring them against Empire as Bretonnia, is because Paladins are very good at sniping casters. Like, they don't have, like, the most amazing combat stats. They're one of the cheaper units in that respect that fill that particular role, but still very good. And you can see that Jade Wizard just gets dumped on by those Peasant Bowmen in the back, and that Paladin are able to kind of combine forces. And now you guys can see the balance of power is indeed tipping down. There's about 20 seconds left in the battle, but Boris Todbringer is most likely going to suffer army losses, as him and his Warrior Priest here are putting up a desperate last stand, but they are just heavily surrounded. The sons of Bretonnia, the sons and daughters of Bretonnia do get a pretty good surround right here, and it looks like that's going to be all she wrote for the mighty Todbringer. So very well played to my opponent, Gabo King. That was a super fun match, very close. The balance of power literally didn't tip until like the last 30 seconds of the battle. So very cool build from him. The Knights of the Blazing Sun did some outstanding shock damage. Thankfully, we were able to win one side of the battle with that, the Knights of the Realm and the Pegasus Knights able to take out those Demogryph Knights. So at the end of the day, he just, his infantry corps was very light, but still, I mean, he very easily could have won that game. There was several points where, like, Boris was, on the Fey Enchantress, and she was at, like, half health, and had Boris been able to stick on her and he was able to rout her off, I think I would have lost that battle. So that could have gone either way. So again, very well played to my opponent, the Gabo King. Definitely check out his channel. It will be in the comment section below as well as the description box. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that battle, and guys, more content coming soon.